You are listening to the Navigating Adult ADHD podcast with your ADHD coach and expert, Zena. Hello, my friends. Today we are joined by an amazing guest expert, and I'm about to share with you the conversation that we had. Before I do, though, I just wanted to let you know that we talk about alcohol, ADHD, addiction, and it's such a relatable episode. I found myself nodding along to so many of the things that we talked about and that Paulette, our guest, shared. So speaking of that, our guest is Paulette Crowley. She is a registered mental health coach. She specializes in helping people overcome addiction. And as she shares with us right at the beginning here, you'll hear how much lived experience she has when it comes to things like mental health, addiction, ADHD, etc., and also being in long-term recovery. So she is a fellow ADHDer. You'll hear all about her ADHD story, her journey, and she's also been sober now for 10 years. Now, you may recognize her face. I say little because I'm thinking of the little graphic, the little podcast graphic, but you might recognize her face because she's also a health journalist. And I did recognize her immediately because of some of the columns that she's written in some of the magazines that I have read over the years. So Paulette lives on the beautiful Waiheke Island here in New Zealand, and she's a dog person. What? I think we need to convert her to Team Crazy Cat Lady. But you'll find her on the beach most days with her beloved dogs. So enjoy this incredible conversation that we have. I'm going to link to where you can connect with her in the show notes below, all of the places. But I think you guys are going to take so much away from this, just like I did, as you hear her story and hear about some of the ways that we can support ourselves or other people around us when it comes to alcohol and addiction. All right, let's dive in. All right, welcome back to Navigating Adult ADHD, my friends. Today we have a very special guest, Paulette Crowley, and I should have asked before I hit record, am I saying your last name right? Is it Crowley?
That is right. Yeah,
Paulette
some people
Crowley.
say Crowley, but I say Crowley.
Okay, good. All right, fantastic. So we're off to a good start. I want us to dive right into your story to start with. Like, people who have hit play on this, they know we're here to talk about ADHD and alcohol addiction. So one of the things that stood out to me on your website was this: I have lived experience of diagnosed alcohol addiction, depression, anxiety, and ADHD. So Paulette, tell us your story.
Yeah. Gosh, it is a big statement, isn't it? I don't remember writing that, but when you say it, gosh, it's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah. Okay. I guess my story with addiction is how it all started, really. You know, as a little kid, I was kind of obsessed with sugar and hunted it down all the time, and yeah, just loved ice cream. Ice cream was my absolute, I loved it. I'd do anything for ice cream and I could never get enough, I always wanted more. So yeah, I kind of was chasing that dopamine, if you like. And I grew up in a family that was just rife with addiction. It was very normalized, though. This was like the 70s in Australia. It was a big drinking culture. My parents are both really big drinkers. So I saw them role modeling to me what to do to manage everything in life, which was alcohol. So they managed all their feelings and all their problems with alcohol, whether it was good, bad, sad, mad, glad, whatever. It was alcohol. So that's what I grew up doing. I do remember, just backtracking a little bit, I do remember feeling depression when I was a kid. I remember going up to my mum sort of about 8 or 9 and just being so sad, like sadder than, unexplained sadness, more than a little kid should have. And I couldn't shake it and it just wouldn't go away and it would last for days and days and days. And she'd be like, there's nothing wrong with you. Like, you've got everything you need and want. Like, why are you sad? And I'd be like, I don't know, but I just can't stop crying. And I'd worry about everything. So looking back, that was the beginning of depression and anxiety. And I'd worry about things and go over and over and over things. So, And about the same time, again, this is all looking back, I was just like full on undiagnosed ADHD, you know.
Yeah.
I could not stop talking. I was that kid that the teacher would put in the front row on my own because I would talk to like the head off anyone I was sitting next to. I'd
Yeah.
distract everyone around me.
Yeah.
I couldn't concentrate unless I was interested, and then I was
Yeah.
top of the class sort of thing, you
Yeah.
know. I also had the hyperactivity going on.
Mm.
So I think all little kids are a bit bouncy, right? Like they sort of can't sit still and jump up and down and stuff. But I got worse as I got older. I
Mm.
literally couldn't sit still. Um, when teachers tell you to sit down with your, you know, hands under your seat sort of thing,
Oh
like
yeah.
hands
Sit on
down,
your
sit up
hands.
straight.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, hands on knees. That's right. That's
Oh
what they
yeah. Yeah.
say. I just couldn't. And I used to sort
Mm.
of roll backwards and do backward rolls and stuff like that when they told me what to do, that sort of thing. I was a bit nuts. And so it all led to when I was about 14, I started drinking.
Yeah.
Because life was intolerable at that point. I had
Mm.
these huge feelings. I was worried about everything. I couldn't manage. There was a lot of stuff going on in my household with, alcohol and the problems that can come with that. There was a lot of dysfunction in my family, and I
Mm.
didn't know what to do. And so I just looked around me and thought, well, that's what they're doing, so that's what I'm going to do. So I
Mm.
started drinking. I just pinched my parents' alcohol. Um, Sometimes I'd even drink in front of them, like we're allowed to drink, say, on a Friday and Saturday night, have a couple with them or at a
And this
dinner.
is at 14, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this was usual. It was
Yeah.
really normal. It's like, well,
Yeah.
you might as well start with us because you're going to do it anyway.
And to speak to that, I was the same. I think I was
Yeah.
14 the first time my dad gave me one of his beers, and I
Yeah.
drank the whole thing and was like, whoa.
I know.
I was like,
Yeah.
wow. So yeah.
And hey, that feeling, I still remember it. It's like,
Mm.
in fact, I remember the first time I really consciously had a drink because I was very, very stressed out.
Mm.
So I'd had a big fight with my parents. I had problems, whatever. There was a bit of a drama. They went out, and I went and got a can of Foster's.
Oh
This is
yeah.
Australia, right? And
Yeah.
and pinched a couple of my father's Dunhill Reds, sat on
Mm.
the back step, and just went, oh, that's better. And the feeling that just overcame my body, that big, beautiful, warm feeling, and everything just seemed to float away. Just all that
Mm.
anxiety, and I just felt
Wow.
great.
Yeah.
And the
And then
stereo
you
on.
associate feeling great with the alcohol,
Yeah,
right? Like,
yeah. And
yeah, takes my
how
problems
it
away and
felt
I feel great.
inside.
Mm.
It fixed the hole in my soul. That's how I used to.
Yeah.
Yeah, it filled it
Wow.
up, and
Yeah.
I'd turn into a person who could enjoy life. I'd put the music on, and I'd be singing to Duran Duran and Culture Club, and dancing around while my parents were out, thinking, God, I wish they'd never come home. All that sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it
Yeah.
wasn't long before I left home and I progressed into a very regular full-time drinker.
Yeah.
And pretty early on as well, I was a blackout drinker. So as
Right.
soon as I started drinking wine and spirits, that's when I'd drink to blackout. Would happen quite quickly. So
Yeah.
it was problematic very quickly.
Mm.
And
So
yeah.
did you start drinking like when you say, I can't remember the term you used, but like were you drinking every single night once you moved out? Was it like basically every
No,
night or?
I was never like that because I
Oh,
hated
okay.
hangovers. So I was much more of a
Right.
binge drinker.
Okay.
So when was quite young, it would probably be Thursday and Friday nights, maybe Saturday nights, as you do when
Yeah.
you're going out, when you're young and you're going out, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like that throughout my teens, and
Mm.
I ran into a bit of trouble, quite a bit of trouble with all of that, and ended up in rehab when I was 19.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, which was the best thing I've ever done, because it taught me that there wasn't something bad about me. There was something
Mm.
sick about me, as in I was a sick person trying to get well, not a bad person trying to get good, because I rolled
Yeah.
up there with no self-esteem. I'd messed up everything. I thought I had anyway. And
Yeah.
yeah, I just kind of learnt all about what was actually happening and what I was doing to myself. So I learned about
Yeah.
addiction that way. Yeah, I didn't stay sober after that, but it's sowed the seeds of what my problem was and that there was a solution for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that it's not a moral issue. Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's not a moral issue at
Yeah.
all. So I learned about the
Yeah.
disease of alcoholism or addiction. Some people don't like the word alcoholism, but I learned about it. I learned about how it had played out in my family and how that had affected me and
Yeah.
other people around me. So I just had a greater worldview of what was really
Mm,
going on. But I still needed to do a lot of living, a lot of growing up, and
mm,
learn a lot more before I could finally
yeah.
on top of it for good. And
Yeah.
plus, I still didn't know about mental health and ADHD at that point. We're a long
Yeah.
way from that, you know.
So tell us, how old were you when you were diagnosed with ADHD? Like
It
roughly
was 2022, I think. So what?
2022.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I was about 51.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. And at what age did you get sober for reference? So
10 years ago. So I was
10 years
40.
ago,
Yeah, yeah. So yeah,
early
I got
40s. Yeah. Yeah.
sober about
Yeah.
7 or 8 years before I got diagnosed with ADHD.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious, like, did you get to a point in your journey where you realized like you were addicted to alcohol? Did you already know that? I mean, I guess what was the catalyst that led you to get sober and not go back? What was that?
Well, there was lots of catalysts. It wasn't like I'd
Mm.
like to say it was like a big sort of coming to Damascus moment or something because it
Yeah,
wasn't.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was over years and years. Like I knew that I was an alcoholic. I knew that I had
Yeah.
a problem with alcohol. Most
Mm.
of the time, I would be, in denial around that. But I'd always come back to, oh my God, why am I doing this? I've got to stop.
Mm.
I've got to stop. But I couldn't stop. So
Yeah.
it was years and years of that. And I did have lots of periods of sobriety.
Yeah.
When I was pregnant with my children
Yeah.
and, 6 months here, 3 months here, 10 months there, lots and lots of those periods. So
Mm.
I was
Mm.
gradually building up those times, but I'd always fall off the wagon. And in retrospect, it's because I really didn't know what was going on with my mental health. And my mental health tipped me
Yeah.
back into that relapse pattern again and again and again.
Yeah. I'm
Mm.
curious, do you think getting your ADHD diagnosis has made it easier to understand yourself and your mental health and therefore remain free of alcohol?
Absolutely. That was when it
Mm.
all made sense. That's the moment. That was the big
Yeah.
dramatic moment for me because
Yeah.
it was like, oh my God, no wonder I drank. You
Yeah.
know, I had
Yeah.
this brain that was going a million miles an hour all the time. I had
Mm.
rampant depression and anxiety that
Mm.
wasn't very well treated. Um,
Yeah.
I took away my medicine, which
Yeah.
was
Yeah,
alcohol.
that's self-medicating. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it
Yeah.
was really hard. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's why it made complete sense for me. So
Mm.
I had a moment when the psychiatrist who diagnosed me, she explained to me how it worked. It was a layer cake um, metaphor, which I've told you about.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So what she said was ADHD is like a layer cake. So your first layer is ADHD, and then on top of that, you've got depression, and then anxiety, and then if you have it, substance abuse, addiction
Mm.
problems. And
Mm.
so that was me. And she said, but the thing is, if you treat the ADHD, those things can actually disappear.
Yeah, those layers
Got
can come
treated
away.
ADHD. And,
Mm.
because of course, we know that ADHD, people with ADHD have a much higher risk of depression and anxiety.
Mm. And
Um,
substance abuse too, right? Yeah. Yeah. All
exactly.
of
And it
that.
all
Yeah.
connects to each other.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
if you've got untreated ADHD, you are likely to be depressed and anxious.
Yes.
And that leads to addiction because you want to medicate yourself.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what's an
Yeah.
easy way to do that? It's
Yeah.
alcohol or weed or whatever it is that we pick up, food
Yeah.
in some
Yeah.
respects. But for me, it was alcohol. It's all about the
Alcohol.
alcohol.
And to
Yeah.
come back to the beginning of your story, one of the things you said early on that stood out to me was it started with the sugar, right?
Oh,
Like that, I was just like nodding. Oh my God, yes,
mm,
that was me. Like I would consider myself like to be an addict in that regard to sugar. I am now sugar free. I choose to not use alternatives to get sweetness, but because
mm,
it's not something I could ever do in moderation. Like I was the same with the tub of ice cream, right? Like I couldn't just have a bowl. I would
mm.
finish the tub,
Yep.
right? Like there was just this, yeah, that relationship. Yeah, I can see how that for somebody with ADHD, right? Like we have that thing that can
Mm.
progress to something else. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So
Mm.
it's finding out a way to, like, for me, I started to treat my ADHD. All my mental health symptoms got better. That
Yeah.
again was a process. It wasn't like, just instantly that happened. It was a
Yeah.
process of finding out different ways to do things. I had different medications and things like that.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm
and
glad you said, just to highlight that, I'm glad you said process, because I think
yeah,
people sometimes we get a little what's the word? Like we get a little kind of caught up in the idea that we start ADHD medication, everything's going to be
mm,
great and
mm,
all the layers will be removed, but it's not like that. It is a process, whether it be finding the correct medication or adding a variety of tools to your belt.
mm.
Either way, it is a process. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
first of all, I chose not to actually medicate my
Yeah.
ADHD. I
Yeah.
needed time to go and process it. I had, because I was in recovery from alcohol, and all mind altering substances, as in
Mm-hmm.
things like that. I thought I don't really want to have a stimulant
Yeah.
because I'm so addictive. I'll probably get addicted to it. I
Yeah.
was a bit
Yeah.
sort of funny about that. But as time went on, my daughter was diagnosed with ADHD. My partner was diagnosed with ADHD, and I saw their journeys with medication, and I saw how it changed their life. And I
Mm.
went, maybe I'm going to try it. So
Yeah.
that's when I started that. And that was another moment where it all just got easier,
Yeah.
beginning of another process, which made it all easier. So, yeah. And now I'm sort of at the point where I think I'm optimally treated and with my ADHD. And, things are really stable. I'm still sober,
Yeah. Yeah.
obviously, 10 years in now. And my
Yeah.
mental health is always something I'm going to have to work on and manage.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
really manageable these days
Now
because
that you know what's at the foundation, right? Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
it's a real journey of learning to get to know yourself, like for me, like what my energy levels are like, what I can and can't do. I always push myself too far. Um,
Yes.
so it's about living and learning through that, like
Yeah.
I
Oh,
can't
yeah.
do
There's a
that.
lot to learn.
Oh
Yeah.
my God,
That doesn't work so well, right? The
the
crashes.
crashes that I have,
Yeah.
yeah, if
Yeah.
I don't watch it. And then of course
Yeah.
adding into that the whole being 54, I'm menopausal now, postmenopausal,
Yeah.
and all of this was happening through perimenopause too. So
Oh,
we have
geez.
that hormonal mental roller coaster going on as well. So
Yeah.
it was a lot to work through, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's just so much better. I actually am really the happiest I've ever been, or the healthiest I've
Yeah.
ever been as well. And a byproduct of
Yeah.
that is being happy, you know.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. We're going to come back to that for sure. But one of the things we've kind of talked about that I want to dig into a little more is why people with ADHD have a higher likelihood to develop an addiction to anything, but I mean, in this regard, alcohol especially. I'd love us to kind of explore that a little bit more.
Yeah. So, like, I'm not a scientist or an expert or anything, but from my understanding, our brains don't, people with ADHD, their brains don't make dopamine very well. They're not
Correct. Yep.
reliable sources. They sort of come and go, and it's not an easy thing to manage. So we're always searching for dopamine, right?
Mm.
So there's that, and that's what that sort
Yep.
of seeking, dopamine seeking, can lead to the easy fixes, which are
Hmm.
alcohol, sugar, whatever.
Yep.
So, and I don't know why our brains are sort of more wired for addiction. I guess maybe it is because of that dopamine thing. But
Yep.
I know I always go back to the studies. I'm a science girl, and
Mm.
the New Zealand Drug Foundation last year published a meta study
Mm.
of it's called neurodivergence in substance use. So
Mm.
what that was doing was a meta study was gathering all the latest evidence and analysing it. So that's
Yep.
from all around the world, and they came out with as many of half of adults with ADHD ADHD will meet the criteria for substance use disorder in their life, adults.
Wow, that's
So
half. So 50%
ah,
of adults with ADHD.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Wow.
yeah, in some ways it doesn't even matter why. It just is, you know.
Mm,
And
mm,
knowing about that, knowing how to make sure that you're getting enough dopamine from healthy sources.
yeah. And the key being healthy sources, right? Like once we understand
Exactly.
ADHD, we understand a
Yeah.
little bit of dopamine. There are healthy
Yeah.
and not so healthy sources, just like food, right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
it's the
Yeah.
same thing.
And it's
I think,
normal. It's normal for
yeah,
everyone to seek dopamine. I call it junk dopamine, so this is junk
yeah,
dopamine and
yeah,
sugar and all that sort of
yeah,
stuff. So it's
yeah.
about getting it from the healthy sources, but also that
Mm.
whole, you know, making sure you get enough sleep,
Yeah.
that stress
How
levels
how
balance.
important those foundational things are, like sleep,
Yeah.
physical activity, getting sunlight on your skin for vitamin D, all
Uh-huh.
those sorts of things. Again, those things help
Yep.
with the production of dopamine and other neurotransmitters. But to
Nutrition is
yeah, yeah,
absolutely,
nutrition.
yeah,
Mm.
um
But again, when we don't know, right? Like I love your layer cake so much because when we don't know that ADHD is at the base of that, right? We don't know
yeah,
that there's this dopamine seeking behavior
yeah,
because of the ADHD. But
yeah.
the other thing to speak to, I think, as well is like the numbing, right? Like
Mm,
alcohol is something I know I've used in my life, like when I've not had any tools to manage my emotions, right? People with
yep,
ADHD have difficulty with emotional regulation, and it was a way to like numb the emotions, especially anxiety. I suffered with
yep,
that hugely
yep,
throughout my life, and it was a way to like numb that. It was like turning the dial down,
yep,
right? Numbing it, and
yep.
in social situations, like it was
Mm,
just such an easy lubricant, let's say,
yep.
when you're feeling the anxiousness, the nerves, or any of that. So
Yeah. I
yeah.
know it's a great medicine until it's not.
Yes.
Like the next day
Yeah.
you get anxiety through the roof, anxiety.
Right? Anxiety.
So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So God,
Yeah.
that was what my days were like. I'd sort of wake up with a hangover, think I never want to drink again, eat junk food all day because that's
Yes.
what you do
Yes.
when you've got a hangover. It was the only way I could
Beat yourself
go.
up for the junk food. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I feel
Yeah.
absolutely exhausted.
Yeah.
Yeah, go to sleep, and the next day I'd be like, yeah, I'm good. And I'd feel good, and I pretty much wouldn't eat very much that day because I
Mm, mm.
pigged out on pies and McDonald's or whatever the day before.
Yeah.
So I think, right, I'm just going to fast today, and I go like the clappers and work and produce and do all the things, and then I'd reward myself with a drink that night, and the
Yeah.
whole process would start again.
Yes.
So that's
Yeah.
exactly what
So
happened.
relatable. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Let's talk a little bit about like the isolation and some of the shame that can come with the addiction.
yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. Well, I often say to people I work with that addiction likes you isolated, right? It likes you away from other people, and that connection is the opposite of addiction, which is isolation.
Mm.
So, yeah, an example of that was at the end of my drinking, probably the last 4 or 5 years, I really didn't socialize with people that much because it was easier to stay at home and drink on my own. I
Yeah.
found it stressful having people around me, even coming over to have a few
Yeah.
drinks with me or something, because
Yeah.
I couldn't really drink the way I wanted to. And I was
Yeah.
so riddled with anxiety half the time that I'd be like, oh, I just need to have a few drinks before they get here. Because then I'll feel okay, and then they won't see that
Mm.
I've already had to have half a bottle of wine before we start.
Mm.
And sometimes
Mm.
they'd arrive and I'd be drunk and, I would have overshot the mark kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just easier to
Not
just sit
to.
at home
Yeah.
on my, laptop with my rosé in the front yard, well,
Yeah.
my deck with my ciggies and my rosé and my computer. And that's what I did. It was so boring and it was so isolating and so lonely. But
Yeah.
I hated it, but I couldn't stop it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the shame around
Mm.
it, like no one wants to admit that they've got a problem with alcohol.
Mm.
Or
Mm.
maybe that's becoming more okay to talk about these days, but it wasn't. It wasn't for
Mm.
me. It
Mm.
was like, why can't you handle it? What's wrong
Mm.
with you? Or just have one, or one or two, like, just
Yeah.
calm
Yeah.
down.
Why can't you just have one or just a
People don't
couple?
get it.
Yeah.
And I've learnt
Yeah.
now that it's actually not their job to get it. It's not my job to explain to them what addiction is like. If they don't have it, they don't get it. And it's none of their business really.
Yeah.
It's my business what I do with it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I'm
but I
curious from a social perspective, would you say you're more social now? Yeah.
um
Has your circle changed? Is one of the
yeah.
things I'm curious about.
Oh, unreal.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
pretty much overnight. The last night that I drank, it was a bit of a monster night. I had 4 bottles of wine. I'm not
Ooh.
sure how I'm alive after that, but anyway.
Yeah.
And I drank with my best friend, who
Mm.
was also a monster drinker like me.
Yeah.
And a couple of weeks after that night I rang her up and said, I'm stopping for
Mm-hmm.
good. I mean it this time. And she was like, oh, good on you. And I could tell she was thinking, yeah, right. She'll
Yeah.
invite me round for rosé sooner or later. She always does. But I didn't. And we just drifted apart. And I've
Yeah.
literally never seen her again. I have
Yeah.
not seen her in 10 years. So a lot of those
Mm.
people just drifted away out of my
Yeah.
life. And
Yeah.
yeah, but a lot of people stayed, and the friendship has developed into other things. Like, I now meet them for coffee or breakfast, or we go for a walk, or it's not alcohol centric anymore. It's
Yes.
about doing
Yes.
different things.
Yeah.
So it had to change. It's almost
Mm.
like I had to burn everything down to rebuild it again.
Mm.
And yeah, and it was quite painful and confusing at the time. Um,
Mm.
and I felt lonelier than ever for a little while, but it
Mm.
takes time to build a new life.
Mm. Speaking
Yeah.
of that, I mean, what if somebody is struggling with, alcohol addiction, what is the first step that they could take if they want to get some help, if they want to do something about that? What does
Yeah.
that look like? Where do you start?
Yeah. Um, I think a good place to go is start with is talk to your doctor
Okay.
because yeah, if you've got depending on how much you drink, you
Mm.
might have a dependence on alcohol, physical dependence on alcohol, and that needs to be talked about with your doctor because you might not be able to stop like quickly. You might not be able to
Yes.
go cold turkey. You might have to taper down. So, and that's it can be quite a serious thing. If you're a very heavy
Mm.
drinker, and you go cold turkey, you can go into withdrawals that can actually kill you.
And
Um,
just to speak to that, a person in my life went through that process and they
yeah.
had to go into like a rehab facility for a week
Hmm.
where they did the tapering down thing. And then
Mm,
because they were concerned that if this
yeah.
person stopped drinking, that they could literally die.
Yeah.
That was the fear. So
Mm,
they had to go into a
yeah.
rehab
Yeah.
facility because of and then they had
Mm,
medication for a while after that
mm,
they were
mm.
having to take because of
Yeah.
that process.
Yeah, yeah. So obviously that's one end of the spectrum, right?
Mm,
Someone
mm,
who's drinking a lot, but it could be, I don't know. Sometimes it's less than what you think. A lot of people might drink 1 or 2 bottles of wine a night. You're starting to head into that territory of physical dependence at that point. So
oh
it's,
yeah,
you don't
yeah,
have to be drinking 2 bottles of vodka a day to be heavily dependent on
yeah,
alcohol. But yeah, so you might need a medical detox, which is what your friend went through.
yeah.
But also, your doctor's a good point of call for like community alcohol and drug services, which are available
Right.
in
Okay.
most areas. Yeah.
Good. Yeah.
And they're usually free, and they're really good for supporting you through education programs and support programs and things like that. And your doctor might be able to refer you to some counselors as well.
Mm.
So that's one area that you can go in. There's also community support groups like 12-step programs, which can help a lot of people.
So is that when we talk about the term AA? Is that
Yep,
what that would
yep.
be often?
AA,
Yeah.
Alcoholics Anonymous, is a
Right.
12-step program.
Right.
There's also Narcotics Anonymous. So when I talk about 12-step
Right.
programs, there's other ones as
There's
well.
different
But
ones. Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
so I'm talking about AA. AA is really good because there's meetings everywhere and they're free, and a lot of people swear by it. Millions of people have
Mm.
got sober through AA. Um,
Mm.
and then there's also sober coaching, which is what I do.
Yep.
So you can
Awesome.
get one-on-one support through working with someone like me, in a
Mm.
coaching sense. So
Which
yeah,
I think, you know, for somebody with ADHD, I mean, I would recommend that because, like, especially if you're struggling with things like the depression, the anxiety, if we come back to the layer cake, right? Like
mm,
having somebody who understands all the different layers and has worked through that,
yeah.
I think I could see how beneficial that would be. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
for sure. And I trained as a mental health coach as well. So not that I'm a health
Awesome.
professional, I'm a coaching professional,
Yep.
but I have been trained in different types of cognitive behavioral therapy.
Mm,
So, and
mm,
I've just got a lot of tools and skills that I can
mm.
teach people. And I usually work within a team. So, if they might be seeing someone for anxiety and depression, for example, they
Yeah,
might have seen a psychiatrist or a psychologist,
Yeah.
or they might be seeing their doctor or whatever. So I will work as part of that team.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not the whole solution. I don't think
Mm.
anyone is ever the whole solution when it
Yeah.
comes to complex issues like ADHD and addiction.
100%. It's about
Yeah.
like you said, having that support team. Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I'm part of the support team. And
Yeah.
people like, yeah, they like the privacy and
Mm.
anonymity of it. Because sometimes if you're going to, public programs and things like that, or AA, you're sitting in a group of people you don't know talking about stuff that's really
I can
personal.
see that would hold a
Yeah.
lot of people back.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of people. I'm curious, are there online meetings like
Yeah.
as
There
well?
are.
Yeah, that might
Mm,
even be a stepping stone if somebody's
mm,
curious, right?
yeah.
Camera off,
Mhm.
stepping stone, have a look.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
can kind of peek around, nobody sees
Yeah.
you. Yeah,
And I
yeah.
recommend that to my clients,
Mm,
when they sort of stop seeing me or when, we're getting to the end of our coaching journey is like, I wouldn't be any sort of coach if I didn't recommend that they carry on with support somewhere.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
if they are a bit sort of, reticent about showing their face and being in public, I'll definitely recommend that. Go to an AA
Yeah,
meeting online, turn your camera off, just
yeah,
get to know things, baby steps, and
yeah,
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 and keep
yeah,
getting that support because
yeah.
just because you've got sober doesn't mean you can stay sober. It's very much an ongoing process.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And I think it's kind of like the ADHD, right? Like you're born with it, you
Mm,
die with it.
mm,
It's with you for life, right? And an addiction is as well. That's something that we have for life that
yeah,
we live with and
yeah,
we manage and we can learn to thrive with
yeah,
the tools and support, right?
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Tell us
One of
about the
the,
HALT acronym. I
right.
love this. So
It's a great one. Yeah.
yes.
It's not mine. I'd love to say that I invented it, but I didn't. Um, so HALT is hungry, stands for hungry, angry, lonely, tired. And I also put thirsty on there as well. So
Yep.
HALTT.
Yep.
And it's a screen that you can put any problem through. So if you are hitting the wall for whatever reason, having a problem, you're having a craving for alcohol, or you're just losing your temper, or whatever it is,
Yep.
just sit back for a minute and go, halt, literally. So stop and ask yourself, are you hungry? Are you angry? Are you lonely? Are you tired? Are you thirsty? And
Mm.
I can guarantee you that at least one of those things is an unmet need that you can actually do something about. So,
Yes.
yeah. And sometimes even just stopping and providing that pause before you
Mm.
carry on is
Mm.
enough to make you go, oh, yeah, things aren't good at the moment. I need some time out. I need to stop this. In fact, it's time to stop work, or I need to walk away from this person, or whatever it is,
Mm.
you know?
Mm.
Yeah. So many people I coach don't eat properly or eat enough,
Yeah.
and they don't
Yep.
drink properly. Like I'm talking about water.
Yep.
And yeah, there's so much work to do on that self-care because a lot of it all just comes down to that.
The
And we're
basics.
really not
Mm.
very good at doing it,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
me included.
Especially, yeah. And for those of us with ADHD, right? I talk about
Yeah,
this a bit on the podcast, how our interoception is an issue for us, which is like the internal body sense that reads the
yeah,
ability to tell you and tells you, hey, you
yeah,
need to drink water. You are
mm,
thirsty. Or hey, you are hungry. That's why your tummy's making this sound, right?
yeah,
So it makes so much sense for us. But again, I think that's such a powerful little acronym, a little reminder.
yeah,
Just halt because,
mm,
you know, last night, for example, I had a little meltdown, let's call it, in bed, like literally turned out the light, just reading my book, about to go to sleep. My partner makes this comment about the cat and how we should, give one of the cats away because they're fighting, what have you. I have a proper meltdown.
yeah,
And I'm thinking about this and I'm going, I'm I'm tired. My
mm,
meds have worn off. It's
mm,
late in the day, right? Like,
mm,
yeah, I'm ticking some of those boxes. It makes so much sense that my reaction is not a reaction I would normally have
yeah,
at all throughout
mm,
the day, but this time of night,
mm,
yeah, okay.
yeah,
So let's just sleep on it before we make any decisions or say anything that we may
yeah,
wish to take back later.
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm tired.
yeah,
It's not a
yeah,
good time to do this.
yeah. It's not a good time to have this conversation. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I
yeah,
totally relate to that. Something similar
yeah.
to that happened to me last night. So with my daughter. So
Mm.
yeah, and I stepped back and went, not the right time. This is when we always
Yeah.
pick off about this issue at this time of the night, and that's no mistake. It's because I'm really tired.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
100%.
Mm.
So one of the things you said earlier is how, you've got to this place where you're really happy, you're like the healthiest that you have been. For somebody listening who would love to get to that place, who is right now kind of battling with an addiction,
Mm.
what do you think it takes to get to that place?
I think you've got to, people talk about rock bottoms. I
Mm,
think generally speaking, that's kind of where most people have to get.
yeah.
Um, and that was certainly the case with me, although I had many, many rock bottoms. Um, but what I've learnt about rock bottoms or is that you don't actually need to, you don't have to go so low that you just lost everything. You can get off at any floor if you think about, it is an elevator in a tall building, you can get off
Yeah,
the floor. You don't have to go down to rock bottom.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's making that decision that you want to
Mm,
stop. Sometimes that's not enough because, hey, if it was easy, you would have done it by now, right? So it's
yes.
making a decision and then reaching out for help.
Yeah.
Because there aren't many guarantees in life, right? But I can pretty much guarantee that giving up a significant addiction on your own is impossible. You need help.
Yeah.
And whether that's through someone like me or another addiction professional or peer support group in the
Mm,
community, yeah, find your tribe,
mm.
find your professional, and
Get a team, right? Like get that
yeah,
support
yeah.
team around you.
Yeah, surround
Yeah,
yourself, like immerse
yeah,
yourself in it. It's basically
yeah,
got to become your life for a while
yeah,
before you change
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Like I said, you kind of almost got to burn it down before you rebuild it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The good news is, even though it's tough, you can do it.
Yeah,
I never thought I would be able to do it. No one ever thought I'd be able to do it. No one believed in
yeah,
me.
yeah,
They'd just roll their eyes and kind of go, oh, whatever, she goes again. And
yeah,
I had that, I had no faith in myself at all either.
yeah,
If I can do it, anyone can do it. I know that
yeah,
sounds cliche, but it really is. I was one of those people who thought I'd never make it.
yeah.
Alcoholism kills people. It killed my
Mm,
father. He was 69. He died from dementia caused from alcoholism.
mm,
My auntie on my mum's side, she was 52, died an active alcoholic from liver
mm.
cirrhosis. And I had a partner who died. He was 46. He died from alcoholism. So
Wow.
it was in my face, and I still
Yeah,
drink. Now
yeah,
that's the insanity of addiction, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah,
But I still
yeah,
managed to stop. So I
yeah.
think I'm a bit
What?
of a miracle, and I believe in miracles when it comes to addiction. You just got to put
Yeah,
the work in and get the support.
yeah. What would you say is the best part about being sober?
No hangovers. Yeah,
Yeah.
God, it's so many things. No
Yeah.
hangovers. More money. Um,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
yeah. Uh, Being able to look at yourself in the mirror and go, yeah, I like you, I trust you, you've done well by
Mm,
yourself. Yeah, you're a healthier person, like, out of that
mm,
cycle of hangover eating and, crazy
mm,
binge eating and starving and stuff like that.
mm.
Um, yeah, I like myself more. I lost 7 kilos when I lost weight, when I
Oh, so
stopped
when you stopped,
drinking.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And that was
yeah,
not because I was trying. I think I was
yeah.
hoovering down a bowl of ice cream every day. And I
Mm.
still managed to drop 7 kilos. But yeah, there's all sorts of reasons.
So many, yeah. And I
Yeah.
think yeah, self-esteem would be huge. You kind of alluded to
Yeah.
that, like the way that you feel about yourself.
Mm.
Yeah, and
And
like
this,
for anyone who's listening, not watching this, because we've done both, right? I want to say that you're glowing, right? Like
oh,
you've got this beautiful like glow about you. So I can imagine that when you were drinking, that was very different.
oh God, yeah. I look back at some of the photos and it makes me quite upset when I look back at the
Mm,
photos of me. I mean, I didn't look really terrible or anything. Like most people wouldn't have been able to pick it, but I can see I was bloated. I looked kind of dead in my eyes, I was
mm,
not well. Um,
mm.
and also another really good thing about being sober is that you can live to your potential, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Mm.
I'm
Yeah.
better at my job. I've been able to retrain. I'm a better mother. I'm a better partner. I'm a
Yeah.
better friend, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just goes on. It's just,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And also, it allows you to mature emotionally. Like, I'm not claiming that I'm
Mm.
an emotionally mature person. I can be as stupid as the next person and have meltdowns and whatever. But, it stunts your emotional growth when you're drinking
Mm.
all the time because, like you say, it numbs things. And you
Mm.
never actually go through an emotional development arc like most people do. You know,
Mm.
in recovery circles, we
Yeah.
say,
Mm.
you're pretty much the emotional age you were when you started drinking. So in that case, I was a 14-year-old girl.
That
I
makes
don't know if you know any
so much
14-year-old
sense.
girls, but
But ooh.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, I mean, obviously
Oh
that's a
yeah.
simplistic way to look at it, but
Yeah.
still, it really does
But
allow
we
you to
we
grow up.
we we numb for so long with these different things, and we're not, like
Yeah,
you say, developing emotional regulation skills. We're not learning how
yeah,
to deal with difficult emotions. Instead, we just
exactly.
drink them, or we eat
Yeah,
them, or we, whatever
yeah,
it is to
yeah,
get rid of them.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's our
So
mental health tool of
yeah,
choice.
yeah,
Mm,
yeah.
yeah. So
Wow.
yeah, you
Mm,
learn how to do life without
mm.
any substances really, and that does make you develop in a really beautiful way.
Healthy coping skills, like healthy
Yeah,
skills for difficult situations,
yeah,
right? And I
yeah,
think no doubt it would build your resilience and your ability to navigate difficult situations, right? Making you
absolutely.
more willing to, do hard things or pursue
Yeah,
that life that you've always sort of wanted.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Tell everyone listening, how can they find you? Tell us about the work that you do, like where are you? All of those things. Tell us all of
Right.
that.
Thanks. So I work online. I can do face to face, but it's pretty rare because I live on Waiheke Island, and unless you live here, it's probably not going to work out.
Yeah.
So I
I
do.
mean, I'd like to come visit.
You're
It's
welcome.
a nice
But
place.
for coaching, it's better to do it on Zoom.
Hmm.
Um, so I have a website called goodhealthcoach.co.nz.
Hmm.
And yeah, so I trained as a health coach, a registered mental health coach, and that's what we do.
Okay, cool. I will link to that as well in the show notes so that people can
Yeah.
just click on it and go and check you out. I think we've covered so much in this conversation, and thank you so much for sharing because I think it's been so helpful, so relatable. Whether or not somebody is struggling with an alcohol addiction, I think most of us with ADHD can relate to addiction and,
Mm,
using certain things to numb our emotions and or try and get that happy feeling.
mm.
I do want to ask one last thing. Is there anything you feel like we haven't talked about or haven't covered that we should mention for the listeners out there?
Not really, just that message that, you can get through it. You can
Mm,
overcome it,
mm,
as long as you've got that right mindset, which can really
mm.
help with coaching,
Yeah,
and getting that team around you.
yeah, yeah,
And be willing to do the work and sort of change everything
yeah.
because nothing changes if nothing changes.
Oh, yes, I love that. Nothing changes if nothing changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I think you are such a beautiful testament to what is possible on the other side.
Mm. Thank you.
So, yeah, thank you for doing the work that you do, and thank you for coming to share with us today. Hey friend, if you want some more help navigating and thriving with ADHD and some help applying everything that you're learning here on the podcast, then head over to our website, navigatingadultadhd.com.